Hello and welcome everybody, it's Karen. I've got a couple of cards for you today. I am using this Hello Bear stamp set because, well, it's just so cute. And so for my first card, had I thought this through, I would have just cut that rectangle and stamped right onto it and colored there, but I didn't. I stamped everything on a separate piece of card and fussy cut them out. So I had to use that mix and match scallop die there to cut the bottom of my little bear's grass, and now I'm going to stick it down to my rectangle that I've inked up the sky on. So if you were going to do this, I'd say cut the rectangle first and then stamp. Now I'm cutting that same rectangle from an A2 size card front, but I wanted to do something a little more with the card, the frame itself. So I'm taking the next two size up dies and I am positioning them around that center opening, and I'm going to emboss these. And so for me, I put them on my platform base with the rubber mat and then the embossing plate and run that through. And that's how it turned out, which I thought was quite pretty and just gave some more texture and interest to the frame. So I've mounted that on some foam tape, removed the release paper on two opposite corners, and I am just sticking that down to my card base now. And then I'm just putting some glue inside that opening and positioning my scene back into the middle of that. Now I had already stamped and clear heat embossed my sentiment, and I'm mounting that onto the bottom frame there. So it's raised up a little bit from the bottom opening. And then I had stamped and colored in 4 of these flowers that are also in that same stamp set, and you can see I'm just arranging those around my little bear. And that's my card. I just think he's the cutest bear. Okay, my second card, I'm making a mason jar. And so it's kind of a mini slimline. So I have a piece of card that is 3 3/4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. I've marked off 3/4 inches at the top, and I folded it in half, and I'm using my corner rounder now to cut the bottom outside corners of my jar. So when I open this, you can see that's the start of a jar shape. And then I'm cutting along that 3/4 inch line. You actually don't do this in the final product, but for my template, I needed to get in to cut this, to corner around this corner. So that's all I'm doing there. I used the 1/2 inch rounded corners for these. And so now when I open this out, the bottom is the mason jar, and I need to just trim off that lid so it's narrower than the jar itself. Now, really, I should have closed this up in half again and just made one cut so they were uniform, but I wasn't thinking at the time. So if you were to do it, I would say close it and then trim off the edge a bit. And I used my scissors and just went and corner rounded these lid corners, and again, if that was folded in half, it would be much easier and much more uniform, but I didn't, so you'll see how my jar turns out in a second here. But it looks like a jar in the end, I think. So I mean, I didn't have a die for it. I don't know if there are dies out there, but it's a quick and easy way to make it. Now I've got a couple of pieces of yellow card. I scored that at 3/4 inch. I meant to do a 1/2 inch, but all I needed is to fold these together and attach them. This is to make my card base. So I'm just taping my template to the very top fold line there, and then I'm going to fussy cut around that. Now you could just pencil it in and cut it out. In the end, I actually repeated this process with 110-pound white cardstock because my yellow cardstock is really flimsy to use as a card base. You can kind of see how floppy it is there. But I also have a piece of acetate that I did exactly the same thing for. I positioned my jar up at the top and just trimmed out around the outside edges there to make it fit over the front. And I've cut a 3/4 inch wide piece of silver foil cardstock and rounded the edges to match my template. But I wanted a bit more on that lid, so I flipped it over onto my scoreboard, and I'm using a stylus to score 3 equal lines on that lid. Now, I'm pressing fairly hard and going over it. I'm actually just trying to get the ridges on the front by doing this. So you'll see when I flip it over that it's got those nice ridges. They are raised. It kind of doesn't look like that in the video. Okay, I'm using the honeycomb drip stencil here. I'm using the honeycomb part on the yellow mason jar. And I actually used 2 shades of yellow. I went in around the edges just to darken that up a little bit. And now on the acetate layer, I am covering up the lid with some washi tape there. And then I'm putting the honeycomb drips part of the stencil over it, and I'll just tack that one down in place. Now I'm going to use some Liquitex Gloss Heavy Gel for this honeycomb drips part. Now this dries fairly transparent and it's very nice and glossy, but I'm just mixing it with a few drops of fossilized amber distress ink, and I just wanted to get a nice yellow honey looking color out of this, so that's what I was going with there. You could use any ink that you have to mix into this gel. So I'm going to put that on over the top. I made way too much of it, but I'm just spreading that down where the drips are. So the acetate's underneath. I know you can't really see that, but that's what I'm putting the paste onto, is the acetate jar. And I set this aside to dry overnight. It doesn't take that long actually, but I was just doing this at the end of the day. So there it is when it's dried. You can see it's fairly transparent and it's got a nice raised texture to it. You could choose to use either side. That's the clear acetate side. I put mine with the lumpy bumpy side out. And here I've colored up my beehive and I'm just kind of positioning him so he's in behind some of those drips. I did extend that tree branch a little bit when I was coloring it. And then I've stamped this little bee in here, added some Copic marker, and I'm using a sparkle Jelly Roll pen to color in all the flight trails for all of those bee pieces. Now I'm tacking this acetate layer in place over my card base, and so I'm putting the bear and my sentiment on the front of the acetate. The beehive is in behind. And I'm doing that because I wanted to have somewhere to attach the acetate down. So you can see I'm putting some red line tape in behind my bear and the sentiment, and I've put it behind the lid part at the top. So now it's still tacked in place at the top there with some low tack tape, and I can just flip it back over and position it so that all my edges line up. That red line tape is so sticky, you kind of want to make sure you're going to go in the right place when you go to stick that down. So that's all I'm doing there, just trying to get it lined right up with the other edges. And once I'm there, I can press everything down so it's attached at the top by the lid and behind the bear and that sentiment. And the beehive is inside. And so then all that was left now was to add some tape to the back of my lid, and I can put that down on top. And so now I've got a little mason jar card it's a shaped card. I kind of like that. But honestly, those bears in this stamp set are just so cute. And I love this one with staring up at his honey beehive. So there you can see that texture, I hope, of the honey drips. And there you have it, 2 little cards. I just think that bear lying down is so cute. Really cute. So I hope I've given you some inspiration, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you'll come back for the next one. Have a great day, everybody.